Greetings and welcome to the Introduction to Astronomy. In this week's Misconception in Astronomy, we are going to talk about stars and find out if all stars explode at the end of their lives. So, do all stars explode at the end of their lives? And the answer is definitely no here. In fact, very few stars will actually explode, which is what we call a supernova, and is shown in the image here, where you can see the arrow pointing to an object that is visible in 2013, but was not visible previously. So the only stars that are going to explode are the very most massive stars, those about 8 times the mass of our sun. So it's those very massive stars that can do this, and they're also relatively rare. And those are the type that will actually explode and leave behind a supernova remnant, such as the Crab Nebula seen here. So this is the remnant of a star seen to have exploded here on Earth back in the year 1054, nearly 1,000 years ago. Now the question is then, what happens to other stars? Well, they do expand and expel their outer layers. So they do expand and give their layers out into space, but in a much less violent manner. And in fact, we can see an example of that here with the Ring Nebula, which is an example of a planetary nebula. This is what will happen to our sun at the end of its life. The core will remain in the middle. That dot at the center is the white dwarf star at the center, and the outer layers will continue to expand outward into space. Now, why do these stars not become supernovae? Well, this requires very high temperatures in the core, and we can look at a sketch here showing the idea of what the inside of one of these stars looks like. And the very inner layers are fusing multiple elements, and in fact, fusing elements up to make an iron core. So they can fuse, in this case, hydrogen, helium, carbon, neon, oxygen, silicon, and sulfur, and then finally fuse those into iron. This becomes unstable because you can't get any energy from fusing iron. And it takes energy, and that causes the star to implode, collapse downward, and then expand back outward in the supernova explosion. So we want to think about what our own sun might do here. What will our sun do at the end of its life? Well, it will be a planetary nebula like the one we looked at here. And that is what our sun will do at the end of its life. It will expel its outer layers, consume the planets in the inner solar system, and then settle down to become just a lone white dwarf star. Its outer layers surrounding it will be illuminated for a while, but over time, as they expand farther away and the white dwarf cools off, they will just dissipate out into space, becoming seed material for future stars. So let's go ahead and finish up with our summary. And what we've looked at today is that very few stars will actually explode as supernovae. Most stars will end their lives as a planetary nebula. It's only the very massive stars that can create the correct conditions at their core that will cause them to explode. So that concludes this week's Misconception in Astronomy on all stars exploding at the end of their lives. We'll be back again next week for another Misconception in Astronomy. So until then, have a great day, everyone, and I will see you in class.